Morning officially. It is a great pleasure to see a full online event today. We are aware that we are going through uncertain times, that this is the end of the year almost. And of course, all of you are very busy, so we highly appreciate you showing up today for this event. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Center Science Innovation for Development, SCiDEV as we call it, which is hosting this event, and also on behalf of the Dutch Embassy in Tirana, who have motivated and supported us to organize this online forum today. Just a quick introduction for those who don't know us. I am Diana Bino, one of the co-founders of SCiDEV, and I'm honored to be moderating this event today with such a great lineup of speakers and participants as well. SCiDEV is a civil society organization working with diverse sectors, particularly in academia, in private sector and media. We have a network of researchers and collaborators in Albania, but also across the Western Balkans. And some of our collaborators are experts in digitalization and innovation. And so this is how this event was initiated. Back in spring, when the lockdown started because of the coronavirus pandemic, we organized an online panel on the role of innovation in the time of crisis, with a focus on how challenges of the new situation could be turned into opportunities through the use of digitalization. My colleague Aryan Soray was actually the initiator and moderator of that event. And since then, we have been discussing within ourselves on how to continue to do some follow-up in this regard. In September, we met with Ms. Aida Lahi from the Dutch Embassy and brainstormed some idea. And then we agreed to organize this as an open forum to explore how prioritizing digital skills upgrade in Albania can boost the economy by drawing from the experience of the Netherlands as a front runner in this area in Europe and beyond. So I take this opportunity to thank Ms. Aida Lahi for her support and the Dutch Embassy as well. So without further ado, as you know from the agenda, I would like to give the floor to Her Excellency, Madam the Ambassador of the Dutch Embassy in Albania. Once again, thank you so much for your support and for being here today to share with us some of the insights regarding the Dutch experience in terms of digitalization, digital skills, innovation, and entrepreneurship as well. It is a great pleasure for us to have you here with us today. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be here today, digitally. I decided to put some nature in the background, inspired by your relaxing music that I really liked in the minutes that we were waiting. So I think it combines nice with the relaxing nature background that you see behind me. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today, and also thank you for introducing Ms. Aida Lahi, because indeed it was her from the Dutch Embassy who's been working closely with you, and thanks to her work that this came about. Yeah, I mean, the topic that we're discussing today is more relevant than ever. We're all here from, some from the office who are lucky, many from homes, in Tirana, in Amsterdam, and all around the world. I'm sitting at home today, and this is all thanks to well, technology and digital advancement. And I think it has really accelerated, the COVID crisis has really accelerated dramatically the remote working, and has put the digital technology at the heart of our daily life. Sometimes, well, to our frustration, I have to admit, but also, of course, well, we're very happy to have this and to be able to be together in this way. In the Netherlands, the pandemic has really pushed our society, where embracing technology is no longer an option, it's a necessity. And the Netherlands is Europe's most wired country with an innovative and open culture. And the Dutch are often considered the digital frontrunners, like you already said at the beginning of your introduction, who lead in the new digital applications. The Netherlands ranks number 2 in the world for online connectivity, with 98% of the households having a broadband connection. And many of you might know that there are such innovations as the CD, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth and DVD that are all products of the Dutch innovations, and 70% of our innovations are related to IT solutions. Also companies like Bookings or WeTransfer were founded in the Netherlands. Still, all these developments that we see around us bring also dilemmas that are part of the discussion at different levels. While we are discussing the digital advancement and the success, we also need to reflect on the effect it has on our human behavior. While we are connected in this way, I think loneliness is becoming a major disease in society. We all go for the likes digitally, but I understand that the average American has one real friend that he or she can talk to. And those are things we really need to keep in mind, and to think how we can use our technology and digital solutions, and who we are really doing this for and what we're doing this for. The other point I want to make is that the Netherlands is very much committed to the Sustainable Development Goals, and we will hear more about Sustainable Development Goals and digitalization later on. But it's also noticed that this pandemic has increased the income inequality, and more people are left behind than before the pandemic. So it's also a discussion how we can better go through a just technical transition where inclusion is respected, and we can help many people to connect. So how can we unlock the benefit of digital skills and still keep humanity in the middle? I think that's the central question. So this webinar today comes at a very good moment. Not only is it 2 months ago exactly that we marked the 5th anniversary of the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have entered therefore in the decade of action. And this is, I think, a good moment to work also on this part of the action to ensure digital inclusivity, and using technology and digital solutions to solve those global challenges together. The other reason why it's an important day to have this webinar is that today also marks the start of the Orange the World campaign, which is focused on women empowerment. And one of the main principles of this year's Orange the World campaign is how to make sure that you economically empower women. So I really hope to see less women and girls face the gender-based barriers, and more girls considering a career in tech, narrowing down the digital gender gap that's also there. So recapitulating, I think technology is no longer an option. It is a necessity, and the focus on unlocking the digital skills is crucial, but we need to ensure to keep humanity in the middle and ensure inclusivity. So I would like to thank SCiDEV for the initiative, and I really look forward to all the contributions today. Wishing you lots of likes and retweets and hits, but above all, a very interesting discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador. Thank you also for pointing out the impact of digitalization on human behavior and human relations, so the social aspects of the technology. We at SCiDEV work at the intersection between social sciences and information technology and digitalization, so we try to bring together not only the technology but also the human and the social impact. I would also like to stress out the point that you mentioned about women empowerment through digital transformation as well, and maybe during the discussion session I will invite one of our colleagues who is working with a network of women in STEM in Albania and in the region to mention something about this initiative as well. When it comes to digitalization of digital skills, inclusion remains a critical issue, as you pointed out, and without ensuring inclusive digitalization, we risk to further marginalize certain groups in society. And the COVID-19 pandemic, in fact, has highlighted the risk of digital exclusions and the digital divide. So I'd like now to give the floor to Mrs. Enida Messi, Head of the Parliamentary Subcommittee on Sustainable Development Goals and Deputy Head of the European Integration Parliamentary Committee in Albania, also former Deputy Prime Minister of Albania. Thank you, Mrs. Messi, for joining us today, and the floor is yours to share your thoughts about the Sustainable Development Goals in Albania and our digital future. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you for the invitation, and definitely it's such a pleasure to be among you and all the participants, Her Excellency, Madam Ambassador, Professor Jepa, and all the participants. In fact, talking about technology, meanwhile, we are using one of the most used, let's say, digital skills, I do believe, since March 2020. Definitely, yeah, it's important, but somehow it reshuffles even completely our way of doing and our way of working. Um, in our, let's say, discussion together, and one of the, let's say, ideas, or it was, let's say, my decision to participate in this talk is because how we can link, or what we can do together as government, as the parliamentarians, to really boost the agenda, the digital agenda. There are a lot of examples, what is running or what is going on in the region and what is going on in the world. Even in the recent annual meeting in Davos, much discussion has been, let's say, has been done about the global challenges, especially in connection to the climate changes, to the economic inequality. And a very much importance was given to how the government can adapt digital technologies that are actually pioneered by the private sector, and to collaborate by and with private sector in order to gain or to benefit digital services, which at the end of the day will improve lives of the citizens. So these digital technologies that already are existing, it's very much important that even the government needs to enhance. We did a lot in offering digital services and applications through Albania portal, and definitely we have moved a lot, and we are one of the first countries in the region having 99% of all the informations for the public services, administrative public services online. We did an excellent reform, and I do believe that we'll continue in that direction to improve as far and as much as we can digital services to all Albanian citizens. We have 34% of all services offered by, let's say, all the institutions in Albania, offered 100% online. Meanwhile, different departments and ministry are working that even for the rest of the services, they can go and then they can enter, let's say, and be finished online. But what's most important is for the government is to understand citizens better and how to achieve via digital skills to offer every kind of services that the government is providing. Provide services much more efficiently and effectively, and find new solution and policy challenge. When we are talking about digital skills, everybody knows who is the elephant in the room. It's not private sector, are not huge industries. Definitely, it goes directly to the government because of bureaucracy and because moving a little bit ahead of the new technological, let's say, improvement. That's why it's very much important that in some public services and in some, let's say, products that per se the government is offering, we need to collaborate directly even with the businesses in order to see how much faster and effectively we can use those technology in order to be, as I mentioned before, near to our citizens and to offer the services much more fast and in much more efficient way. Why I mentioned this? I do believe that using the digital skills and the digital agenda of our government and of our country should be enhanced even in the direction that it will simply improve the services toward the citizens, but it will decrease even the corruption. Because at the end of the day, you have everything transparent, everything it's published, all the procedures are there, and you have to do only with the computer, upload some data and some information or a request, and then wait for the delivery of the services or to approve or for the approval of what you have been requesting. The parliament, from the other side, and talking a little bit even for the subcommittee of sustainable development, we are talking, when in the moment that we are talking about digital agenda, definitely we need to go back and to see digital agenda. Yes, it's an agenda of the government. It needs a strategy, and the policymakers need to do this. But we need to understand where we stand now. What is the current demand for digital skills? How the digital skills can help boost the growing on the economy, and especially in post-COVID time, to enhance the economic growth. What are the barriers in the market, and what are the areas of shortage or mismatch? I mean, skill mismatch, which is defined as a gap between the individual of a job skill and the demand of the job market. And this is kind of information that not only the Ministry of Education, but even the academia, even the universities need to know in order to adapt the curricula and to offer not simply digital skills, but even other, let's say, skills which are hand in hand and do not have the mismatch between, in the market, between the demand and offer. And definitely what kind of digital skills actually we have in the market, in the labor market, and where and what government should do in this direction. It starts, yes, with an agenda, a political agenda. It starts with economic policy with a national focus, but not necessary. We need even to go a little bit down and to enhance the education sector, vocational training in central and local government institutions and agencies in delivering solutions that can address digital skills and gaps and shortages. Some of our countries, according to my information, they have, and we used to have even one ministry in the previous government, which was dealing only with, let's say, public administration and digitalization. And it's good to have one institution which, let's say, is running or executing this agenda. And the role of the parliament at the end of the day is simply to monitor, to coordinate, and to control and to push further to execute this agenda. But this agenda cannot be only of the government, and it cannot be simply the parliament which is oversighting this agenda. This agenda is a 300-degree agenda, because at the end of the day, it's a political, let's say, decision of a government, but the government cannot do anything alone. And this agenda should be worked together with civil society, with universities, and definitely, and much important, with private sector, because this private sector, the one that is adapting faster, is investing in R&D in order to approach the new changes in the technology. And definitely here is a government which will be beneficial, working with this, let's say, fast developing businesses in order to gain from them the experience and to adapt as much as we can adapt these new technologies to develop digital skills, be it in public service, be it in public administration, in the way how our employees are working and are communicating with the citizens, but in the same time, working a lot even with illiteracy of the vulnerable groups, because if we tend to do everything 100% online and to enhance services which are completely innovated and digitalized and with digital, let's say, stamp, definitely we need to offer to all the citizens the possibilities to have the skill first, and the second, to have even the infrastructure. So it's the role of the government then to work both and parallelly to offer the connectivity for all the citizens, but even with vocational training or with the changing in curricula, starting in the elementary school, why not even in the kindergarten, to give the concept in order to be there where the demand and the offer are meeting in the market. When talking about sustainable development agenda, definitely it has a direct connection to find solutions which are helping the economy to grow, which are helping this growth to be inclusive. And when we are talking about innovation or innovative ideas, definitely digital skills and digitalization, and it's one of the must and key priorities of enhancing this this kind of growth. I think for the time being, this is all what I wanted to share with you. And in the meantime, then if we have discussion or question and answering, I'll be here and very pleased to discuss with you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Messi, for highlighting the role of the private sectors and the skills needed for the labor market in today's economy, but also for pointing out the role of the government, particularly with the e-government progress. We also need to build up and to ensure that all citizens and different groups in society have the necessary skills and digital skills to use all the online and digital services. This points, of course, to formal, but also informal education and other capacity building programs. The VET sector, vocational education and training, is an important one, but also the entire education system, including the higher education. I would like to echo your point about the collaboration between policy sector, civil society, education and the private sector. And I know that the Netherlands, for example, has some really good practices in this regard concerning knowledge system and the triple helix or quadruple helix model. So I would like now to give the floor to Aryan from Prenerds Netherlands to talk about empowering the next generation of entrepreneurs and the case of the Netherlands. Aryan knows Albania a little bit. He has worked with some of the stakeholders in the innovation ecosystem and in the education sector in Albania within the EU for Innovation program and other initiatives with the Dutch Embassy. So we are very happy to have him today and to listen to his presentation. Aryan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Biljana. I'm going to try and share my screen with you all because I have a few slides that I'd like to share with you. So let's see if that works.
Yes, it works. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and very pleased to be here today with you from a sunny the Netherlands in Haarlem, close to Amsterdam. My name is Aryan Goudsblom, and like Biljana said, I'm the co-founder of Preneurs.Amsterdam, and we've been working in Albania for the last year and a half. So I have a bit of experience, and it's been great to work with universities. We've done some programs with them last year. We basically gave some masterclass series on how to build an entrepreneurial university. And I'll talk a little bit about that today as well. But first of all, I'd like to say something about the changing environment that universities operate in, because it's quite a challenge for universities these days, coming from a very siloed and isolated approach to a much more open situation. And the expectations of society has changed very much. If you look at universities, they really like research to be connected to society. And it means that they need to measure their impact much more vigorously than what they've done in the past. It's not only about getting your research published, it's also finding ways to really connect that research to society. Now, with that, also the funding models are changing as well rapidly. So it's not that easy anymore to get funding for universities. There's much more focus on employability, and the importance of entrepreneurship plays a big role in that. So they're looking for new ways to engage with society, and all the big themes that are being talked about here today, like digitization, globalization, and international cooperation, is all very much part of the modern university. So the answer to all of those challenges and pressures are often being dealt with by the entrepreneurial university concept. So I'll take you a little bit through to that. It's basically a response to the changing environment, and it's much more of an open, networked university that are hubs of innovation and also applied innovation for the society to tap into. So it has to do with not only researchers publishing their research, but also students developing the digital skills and the entrepreneurial skills to really contribute at a very early stage to society. Now the question becomes, like, how do you become an entrepreneurial university? It's the question between nature and nurture, right? Is it something that should be within the DNA of universities, or is it something you can actually design? Now Daniel Eisenberg thinks that it's a bit of both. He talks about the intelligent evolution, which basically takes the DNA of a university or educational system and really use that as a base to develop and evolve onto the journey of becoming much more entrepreneurial. But the initial instinct of people and projects is often to design, right? And it's the same that we do in Albania. For example, we use a conceptual framework where we look at a level of activation as a foundation. So activation of university students, make sure they get in touch with projects around connecting them to society. Students working, for example, in a project called Digital Workspace, where they help companies, private companies or public sector with their digitization of skills. So they get very much involved in co-creation projects and things like that. It's also about doing hackathons, a new way of working, make sure that you experiment with certain solutions. So it's very much the activation of your base. And on top of that, you build your educational system. So these are more formal programs that look at entrepreneurship education models that you add to your existing curriculum. At the top of the iceberg of the pyramid is, for example, incubation centers. So incubators where you can actually set up your own business. So this is very much the entrepreneurial system that we develop. And then you don't not only do that, you also build your infrastructure, your center for entrepreneurship, your knowledge transfer office, your venture studios, your fab labs. And this is often the space that people start. So programs start often with this framework, infrastructure, and then a set of activities on top of that. In a sense, it's very much developed from the mind, like it's very much thinking through things. And that's often the way that, like I said, programs start. And the Netherlands has done so really well. So they are scoring, and Guusje mentioned that already, they're really high up if you talk about innovation hubs worldwide. The Netherlands, and there's different studies there, but they're about 12th in the world as an innovation hub. They're 3rd in Europe. Amsterdam as a region is doing really well. But most importantly, it is a big generator of jobs in the Amsterdam region and across the Netherlands. So it does work, innovation, entrepreneurship, skill development. Digitization, skill development, and linking that to society. And there's a lot of institutions that play a role there in the Netherlands. If you look at the academic sector, you have the big universities of Amsterdam that I'm part of, based at Amsterdam Science Park, and Innovation Exchange Amsterdam, EXA, is really looking at knowledge transfer, so translating and commercializing innovative research into real companies. You have ACE, the Amsterdam Center for Entrepreneurship, and Startup Village, which is a container park in the Netherlands, where all the startups kind of come together and build on their ventures. It's an incubator. And it's all come together by the city of Amsterdam that has set up Startup Amsterdam, that really binds all those activities together. But it's not only Amsterdam, it's also Utrecht and Eindhoven, all those regional hubs that play a really important role in developing that ecosystem. I think that's all great, and these institutions do exist, obviously, but they do exist because of people that are behind it. And it's very important, I think, to state that the determination of the people that have been involved from the start, like Erik Boer with ACE and Startup Village, Miriam Malou at EXA, Erik Stam at the University of Utrecht, and Ruben Nieuwenhuis. They're just a few examples of people that have really put their tens of years of expertise into those institutions. So it's important to acknowledge that it all starts with the people and the culture and the mindset, because without that, you can't build your infrastructure properly. You can't coordinate your activities effectively. So culture and mindset is at the core of every digitization program in the Netherlands. That's how we approach it. And it's all about getting people to collaborate, to be creative, to have a very positive attitude, a can-do attitude about getting the things done that you want to get done. It's very much about ambition and persistence, and it's also about experimenting and measuring and learning, and above all to be focused on impact. Now you might say, well, that's easy for you to say because the Dutch are a very prosperous country and they have a lot of traits that really help that level of entrepreneurship, and that's true. You know, the Dutch are known to be very open-minded. They're known to be traders. You know, we've obviously have a history of exploring and international partnerships. And therefore, we have a very much inherent entrepreneurial spirit. We also a wealthy nation, which helps in obviously supporting and investing in your institutions. And we're used to overcoming challenges. Like the best one is obviously our being below sea level, which obviously helps if you to be a little bit entrepreneurial if you want to manage those challenges. So the Dutch traits are really good for that. But having said that, there's also a few things that might not be so helpful in developing your ecosystem. And an example, and I don't know if Guusje agrees, but we are very good at polderen, which means that we compromise a lot in our solutions. So that means we take a lot of time to develop our solutions, which is not really great for entrepreneurial mindsets, and also to roll out digitization projects. So a lot of things get stuck in the system because of that. They call us penny-wise. Some people say we're a little bit stingy, which really shows for us, if you look at for investment in initiatives in the Netherlands and for money for startups, it's really hard to get to. We have a mentality of seeing first, then believing, again, a bit of an obstruction if you want to experiment fast and get results fast. And often we kind of stay small in our thinking, particularly if you compare ourselves to the American market. So all of those traits are either hindering or helping your programs that you want to introduce. And always when we go to a country like Albania, we look at those pictures and we try and pick which traits are really helpful for entrepreneurship and digitization, because it's all about the mindset and in the end, it's all about the people that need to live up to those expectations and create those opportunities within the institutions. So this is the base for us if we talk about an entrepreneurial university. And I'd like to leave you with this question, I guess, that I want you to have a look at. And I think it's worthwhile if you look at digitizing and connecting universities to society. How can the educational institutions in Albania empower their leaders? And that's very important. Empower their leaders to create a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation that results in successful and lasting initiatives while being true to the Albanian spirit and culture. So I think it's all about think from the DNA of Albanian higher educational institutions and develop your entrepreneurial and digital strategies from there. So I'd like to leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aryan. Thank you so much. Very insightful and some good points for us to think for further action. I think the role of the university is very, very important. Challenging maybe for Albania, for all universities to embrace this new model, but I know that some progress is being made, and I believe also the program you are working on is also contributing in this direction. And I'm aware that also other programs and other projects will come up next year regarding this model of the entrepreneurial university and the links with the private sector and other sectors in society. But I particularly liked your point about the issue of culture and mindset, and that's something that cannot change very easily, and something that I think all stakeholders and all of us in society need to do our part. I would like to give the floor now to Professor Selami Jepa. He is a senior economist, also the president of the European University of Tirana at the moment. And I'm very happy to have him with us today to discuss and challenge us a bit regarding the future of Albanian economy in terms of the COVID-19 crisis impact and digitalization. Thank you, Professor, for being here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Bleriana. It's a great pleasure for me to be part of this panel discussion. And I'm very honored to be part of the panel discussion with Her Excellency, participation of Her Excellency and Honorable Messi, and all my colleagues that are present in this panel. It is, for a middle-aged person like me, this topic of discussion is a rather bit difficult and very complex. So I will try to limit myself on the connection of technology with the economy. When I read for the first time the book of Yuval Harari, the Homo Deus, I thought that it cannot be a better idea to express the timing we are living, because history was judged based on the calendar before and after Jesus Christ. But now in terms of business and the economy, we might call it before and after Bill Gates. So we are actually, with the help of technology, very much competing in the business that so far was reserved and put to God's action. But now with technology, we're changing that. Sorry, can I change
We
the
can go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, as I said, I will try to limit myself just on the things, on the relationship between technology and the economy, and how the landscape is of the economy and business is really changing these days. When we look back, we're used to think of technology in terms of pieces of hardware that you bounce, you stock in a warehouse, and then you produce things by that. But now this is what we have from the steam engine or from the electricity. But now with the digital technologies, we see that the very concept of technology is changing quite a lot. So basically, it's not just the hardware, but it's a software that is changing, and the hardware remains the same. So we are going to general purpose technology, which it differs in terms of speed, for example, precision, in terms of capacities of business and economy to coordinate on a much larger scale, in terms of the efficiency and much better use of efficient use of the resources, limited resources that we have in our society. The implications of such technological developments, I will go mostly to the labor market and to the way that labor market has been working so far. And together with that, accompanied with that, we will also talk of the education system, which are very much interlinked with each other. But let's look first on the scale or the dimension of the digital technology, because I think this is changing even the whole structure of the economic sector. For example, if we take the latest data, depending on the way that we measure or define what we call digital economy, estimations vary from 4.5% to 15.5% of GDP is contributed by the digital economy, which means actually it's even much larger than traditional sectors of, for example, banking or financial sectors. In terms of market capitalization, we have, for example, 90% of market capitalization. It's dominated by the largest digital platforms. Or we are talking of a market of $7.1 trillion, which is by far the largest market segment so far. In the next years, we are expecting that more than 30 billion things, for example, will be included on the Internet of Things, which with the same market value. When we talk of the division between North and South, in this case, we do not find the traditional division that we find in other economic areas. For example, you have US and China right now, which are basically supplying for 75%, for example, of patents in blockchain and so on. The driving force between this growing in size of digital economy is definitely the data and the platforms that I mentioned so far. When it comes to data is becoming the precious resource. It is basically the same as we use land, as we use labor, as we use technology. Right now we are using data, and it is becoming the most important source for the digital economy. When we compare the data, for example, we see that the traffic, on the internet providers, from 100 gigabytes per day in 92 to 45,000 gigabytes per second, and forecasted to be 150,000 more per second in 2022. It means that the ability of the economy to process such huge amount of data will become a major source of economic development, economic growth. Of course, the idea behind these things is that together with the benefits will come also the problems with it, because we have a lot of experience, for example, with protecting the property rights of land or other resources that we possess. but we have no experience at all, speaking in historical terms, on how to protect, for example, or property rights in terms of data. So basically, the regulations and the way that the regulation on protecting the property, private property on data, it will be a major concern for countries. Another thing is that it seems that the machines are doing better than people in terms of the trust that the society could give to this technology. For example, algorithms right now are becoming an independent judges even for the boards of directors in terms of decision making of companies. Since they don't have any kind of emotional, they seem to be a little bit rather more rational. But on the other hand, this growth of technology, it can be an important source of increasing the efficiency, not only on business sector, but also for the government. And I fully agree with what Honorable Messi mentioned. For example, the Albania has been an important source of increasing the efficiency of government services to the public and to the economy. And there are also other examples, quite interesting examples. For example, the Estonian government, which is one of the best examples in terms of using technology to improve efficiency of the government. When we talk of business sector and how business sector is embracing these technologies, I think that we find the paradox of Solow paradox. For example, you find computers everywhere, but when you look in terms of productivity, you find no reliable data, or let's say the data are quite discouraging. You know, so. By statistical data that we collect so far from Instat, we see that firms that are using computers are, I mean, all firms are stocked with computers, but when we see that why they use, or if they use this for business purposes, we find that even there is some kind of decline in terms of usage of this technology for business and increasing the productivity, with the exception, for example, of some industries, information and communication, or accommodation, and other or government services and administrative services. In other sectors of the economy, the use of technology is quite modest, and so far, unfortunately, is not contributing a lot on the productivity of the sectors. But of course, there are differences among sectors or between, depending on the size of business. I mean, this is not the case maybe for big companies or larger companies, but particularly for small enterprises. And as we know, the structure of the Albanian economy is highly dominated by 98% by small and very small companies. Okay. I think the crisis right now is already acting as a source of change, as an important pressure for change. In particular, there have been recently changes in terms of education, for example. So most of the services in the education system now are going online. Of course, health sector, e-commerce, particularly financial sector, the payments on the financial sector, and other services offered by the banking system. All this, not only in terms of the Albanian economy, but globally also, and particularly for developing economies or less developed economies, the high use of technology in financial sector is helping to increase the financial inclusion, which is a major source of economic growth. We did recently a kind of research with some businesses, not too small businesses, but basically with a large business. And we find from the survey, we interviewed 121 manufacturing companies with the support of Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, and we found that most of the companies intend to use in large scale, the ICT component in the future. And 64% of companies report that they use internet and social media to get in contact and develop new markets. So I think that the crisis, the pandemic crisis that our society is facing right now is a catalyst for change, not only for a business sector, but even on a large scale. But Another concern is that why there is so few investments in Albanian business sector when we see that there is so much contribution by this digital economy in terms of increased productivity and profits for the enterprise sector. There has been quite a lot of discussion and debate on academic sector if there is really a contribution of productivity growth. As I said, this is the Solow paradox, because Solow said that you see computers everywhere except for statistics on productivity. But actually, intensive research, particularly in the last 20 years or 2 decades, we find that there is quite a strong contribution of this digital technology in terms of the productivity and economic growth. And what we find in particular interesting is that a 10% increase, for example, in investment in ICT leads to an average annual growth of 0.6% of the company sector, which means that there could have been a very strong interest on the part of companies, to invest heavily on the ICT in order to grow and become sustainable on the longer term. Maybe the last contribution will be to talk a little bit in terms of how this is changing also our thinking in terms of monetary policy and particularly fiscal policies. There are a lot of implications. For example, recently I read a paper that some countries, the MIT, for example, they are thinking moving from the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, to the DPI, which is Digital Price Index. The idea is that we can measure much better macroeconomic indicators that are critical and fundamental for conducting, for example, monetary policy, and based on this, on the precision of measure, we take important measures, for example, in terms of price of money or interest rates and things like this. The other things relates to the taxation and the competition policies. We have to reinvent again or to reshape the taxation policies, because there is an important difference where the value is created and where it is taxed, or the competition policy, because so far we have been thinking in terms of just the price discrimination for the consumers, but now we have to include other dimensions of market concentration, for example, in consumer data protection, choice, market structure, and so on. The digital currencies definitely is transforming not only the traditional banking business, the way that traditional banks used to make business, but also in terms of new forms of or the contribution of fintech companies in the new ways of, for example, mobilizing finance for investments and for growth. And the final thing is that we have to carefully follow the structural changes and what will be the implications for the labor market, since the markets will some traditional markets will go down and new markets will emerge. We have to think in terms of adapting the labor force for this new market. The bottom line will be that in this very fast change, building new skills is very critical. I mean, as universities, we definitely are working very much on building the typical digital skills for the young generation in order to cope with this new technological revolution. But since this change is so fast, I think we have to keep reinventing ourselves, in a very fast way. So some kind of focusing on human empathy and originality, as we said, are very critical. I mean, we have to learn now and live with new realities. If you go in an airport, you talk with machines and not with people, or if you call a bank, it will be an algorithm answering you and not a person working there. So these kind of things have to be dealt with in terms of the type of skills that we have to build with our students. And again, we maybe in the longer term perspective, we are moving from a society that we use the labor force as a productive force, and then as a consumers, we are transforming and going to a planet that we use people only as consumers, because maybe this kind of artificial intelligence and particularly the fusion of artificial intelligence with the biotech, it can provide an enormous opportunity, but also as a threat. So this kind of challenges, not only in terms of economics, but also in terms of political developments, in terms of democracy, will be very critical for our societies to deal with in the future. Well, that's all my contribution for now, and thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. That was very informative and also a lot of food for thought. I'd like your point about the relevance of the data. And we believe that in addition to digital skills and literacy, data literacy as well is an important area to focus on in the new reality. It is very interesting also what you mentioned about the level of digitalization of small companies in Albania and the challenges that they face and the new skills that we need to develop to better cope with the new reality. And in this light, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Aryan Soray. He's a digital transformation expert and the Jean Monnet module coordinator with a grant awarded by the European Commission on embracing the digital agenda, challenges and opportunities in Albania, which will be implemented at the Professional College of Tirana. Aryan is actually very passionate about the topics of our webinar today, and is actually the initiator and the actual mind behind this initiative. So thank you so much, Aryan, for collaborating with SCiDEV and for speaking to us today. The floor is yours.
Okay. Hello to everyone. Your Excellence, Madam Ambassador, Honorable Ms. Messi, your distinguished speakers, and also guests in here. I really feel so honored being here among all of you. Indeed, as Diana mentioned, to matter of really close to my heart. Indeed, this goes close to all my existence, I may say, because still from my education up to throughout all my experience, professional experience, I was trying to embed, let's say, digitalization in others' life, starting with SMEs, and that was one of the points which I started actually my business. So focusing on digital SMEs. Throughout this phase, I found out that Albania was not an easy country. And people in there, the SME owners, entrepreneurs, didn't thought that the power of data, as Professor Java mentioned before, will bring to them some competitive advantage. And for that reason, I had to explore deeper what was the problem about that. Definitely, I found a lot of different issues which was playing a role, and one of them was awareness and digital maturity. So the maturity of them was lacking. The problem, people here think that once you finish the university or high school, whatever you chose as a final formal education, then you are done with learning, you are done with education. So business will learn and will teach you how to do things. But actually, as we can see, Professor Jabba mentioned, so the new era after Bill Gates, if you may say so, showed us that we are living quite so agile and changing future and daily future, I can say. You know, we don't have to wait for years, but we can wait days and weeks, and everything can change. And the pandemic was one of them. So once we were just doing traditionally business, next day we have to change. So the same thing goes for education. And that was, this current situation was something was lacking behind, because the SMEs, the entrepreneurs, government, so they already was working on that kind of direction. How they could digitalize their processes. They have definitely, they have a lot of work to be done then until still now, but the academia, the educational institutions were the one lacking far behind. And that was the point. This is, I'll try to address in my speech, actually two particular topics were probably was not addressed before. And since that I'm working on education and I'm working and trying to see what's going around, so my role to pretty much point them out. Well, we know we discussed about what's going on around, so it's pretty much a lot of layers and different technologies, from big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things. We go to neural, let's say, scientists, smart materials, so many things going on. Well, this goes the same. The problem is that all these technologies which goes around us, we try to adopt them in our life, in our daily life, not only professional one, and take them for granted, with not knowing actually their own and the real power of them. So the point is that how to know, and we have to be aware that this power of this technology is, when we see them, it's not something of the future. It's something which is happening right now, and this is like a wake-up call for everyone. Going through some materials, since that I'm part academics, part entrepreneur, and I try to combine all of them. I was looking to find some data about digital skills around the globe, but I found it actually one close to us, to our country. We have this WB6, so World, say West Balkans 6 initiative. Right now we see what's going on around us, and we see that already Serbia it's having their own strategy on digital skills, something that we definitely need to have this kind of broader approach also in our country, 2020, 2025. Okay, when there's one concept of what is digital skills, it's any skills which may help a country in order to emphasize and improve quality of life for all citizens. So Honorable Ms. Messi mentioned before what government is doing. Yes, we are on good path in here, government speaking, for quality of life for all citizens. Need work to be done, definitely. We have to increase employment. So how we use digital skills to increase employment. We mentioned before, people who just have skills, new jobs coming out. So we have to make and to shape the new unemployed persons, or also already one employed, to the new skills set in order to increase their efficiency and provide economic growth. And definitely this goes digital skills also for education in our case. There are different layers, if I may discuss about digital skills related to it. We mentioned before, one of them is digital literacy. And probably sometimes in our discourse about the digital skills or in Albania, we mention all the time what's the penetration of internet and broadband. Actually, this is the first very point zero. But the point is that how you use this internet connection, this broadband connection, what's the content in it? So that's why you have to work on above layers. And one of them is digital literacy, which we need definitely to measure that in our country. I can find data for all countries around, not all of them, but most of the countries around us, neighbor one, EU definitely, and beyond. So we need to know where you stand on that concern. We have to not only digital literacy, but we have to see that what are other layers. So what is advanced, let's say, digital skills we need, what's the research, let's say, level on digital skills, so all above layers. But at least we start with digital literacy. What is important, we have to see that digital skills is not about just a skill. We learn just how to work with data, or we learn with IoTs, or just a certain skill. We have to think, because right now we are discussing in national level. We have to think that first, a digital transformation. In order to embed these digital skills, we need to see the big picture and to see that what these digital skills will bring to the processes, everyday processes, or citizens, employees, students, and everything. So we have to see this as a movement. And that's quite important to understand. Definitely, we don't have the power or the wealth, as I mentioned before, to focus, to be journalists, to address any kind of technology around us. So definitely we have to start thinking which is our niche, where to specialize. Definitely digital citizens, we mentioned before, already we're doing, Albania is doing very good work, but definitely this is from government part of view. But the citizens themselves, do they have the skills to consume this kind of data and services provided from a government in central level or local level? I know that already because I'm working with some projects on both levels. I know that there is a huge work to be done. So citizens have to consume this data. And smart working is one that we're discussing throughout all of this pandemic period. People have to understand that it's not about anymore business in Albania, but we are discussing now about a united or a common digital economy. We don't have to think that, oh, probably my neighbor or my employee will not provide me a job, so I have to learn more. You have to think that, well, we can, let's say, pretty much outsource our services to the world. So this is, so the mobility is not anymore an issue. So we don't have to go somewhere abroad in order to get employed there. We can just connect to the internet, provide our skills, and that's it. There is an EU index, actually, which blends some different reports in it in order to understand which is the digital economy and society index. So it's a way or how the EU is trying to measure the digital competitiveness. And definitely they have a focus between among the others, but also digital skills. And that's the data from last year. So they focused on connectivity, mentioned before. Albania is very good. Human capital is the one that we're discussing right now. Use of internet services, integration of digital and technology, and digital services from government. As you can see, yes, indeed, Netherlands is front runner. It's one of 4 best in the EU. And focusing more into the human capital, as I mentioned before, still you can see the average for EU. You can see Romania, Bulgaria somewhere at the end. Well, you can imagine that Albania is even further. Still Netherlands, best 4. So what we need to address in our discussion? What are the skills we need to prepare, mentioned before, in order to provide the future workforce? What is the learning technology and the pedagogical methodologies in order for helping not only our corporate, our entrepreneurs, but also academia. And in that reason, we have to build like a list, a checkup list, or just a to-do list in order for everyone to follow. Because not everyone understands strategies on research papers and everything. So probably we have to break up for them, make it a little chunks for them to get easier absorbed to them in order how to follow up in their academia or private institutions or SMEs, this digital transformation when it comes to digital skills. Yes, when we discuss about digital transformation, one of them, as I mentioned before, it's how we develop the new human resources, new talent. There is research done from, let's say, Western Melbourne, let's say Sydney University, sorry for that, which they also try to measure also around countries, and they find some very interesting data. Well, some of the technology trends right now we are having is, as I mentioned before, Internet of Things, social medias, big data, AI, and stuff, which pretty much we know. The point is that what we as Albania or as country are doing, everyone looking at its own role, government, private institutions, SMEs, academia, any key partner or key users and stakeholders in Albania, in order to address these ones. Right now we know that social media, yes, we use social media, but doesn't mean that we know about that. There's a lot of things to be learned. What is very important to understand, as I mentioned before, mobility. There are 50 new job roles, but even going further regarding digital skills, we need it. And that's why it's something that we have to focus and find our own niche. In order to have some summarizing, or to sum up what I just tried to point out, I can say that there are 5 important points. First, we have to address digital skills into all educational level. We're discussing about the universities. Yes, it's important because they have the, let's say, highest and loudest voice, but we pretty much lag behind the elementary or the high schools, which we know very good that they are pretty much lagging behind in this consideration. The point here is that most of them are having these issues and they are not unifying and don't have the right methodology in order to work on that. And that's why, in order for not to build on different, let's say, generations which are burned down pretty much because they don't get the right education in the meantime. Yes, of course, we try to do it online, but we don't understand and we don't know exactly what's their feedback and outcome of this digital learning platforms and methodologies. So this is one of the things. So for that, we have to empower teachers in order to embed the digital skills, to learn them or to teach them how to create digital content, how to use the digital platforms in order to get best out of it. Another thing is that how we do that. Definitely one thing is to build digital skills hub. Okay, this is concept. Okay, maybe we can call it digital skills hub or whatever, but the important is that we have a way how to everyone come together in a round table and discuss as we're discussing here, but in order to make it more official, where government is there, business is there, academia is there, any kind of excellence center. So I'm sitting right now on one of them, so in a space. So there's a lot of bunch others in Albania come together and we try to understand what's going on and how we prioritize and help the digitalization in Albania. So in order to understand this, I want to focus on the last point, exactly is how we focus our energy in Albania. We don't try just to make best use of digital skills, but we try to, we have to think, we have to go one upper level. We have to think how, for example, Serbia, Hungary, of course, one of them, Netherlands and other advanced countries in Europe, they are focusing on some strategies in order some niche markets. Mainly they are focusing on artificial intelligence, but I think we as Albania will lag somehow behind on that. So I think we have to focus on another niche. All technologies we just discussed before, which right now are around us, where they have one common factor, and that is weakness. There is, let's say, hackers. There is probably safety, security, mentioned privacy, mentioned before, Professor Jeba and others. So probably we may focus on cybersecurity. Okay, right now this might be a very good idea to start curricula and change them from elementary school to high schools to universities, and all businesses and research centers in Albania focus on that. We need a strategy for that. Might be cybersecurity or something else, or smart agriculture. The point is that we need to have one of them focusing. Well, I try to finish in here. Of course, as Einstein mentioned, we cannot solve our problems with same thinking we used when we created them. A part of digital skills, we have to create to our new generation critical thinking. We have to create problem thinking, decision-making thinking, and this kind of other skills, which is very needed to add value to digital skills. As mentioned before, we shouldn't lag any behind. We should be inclusive and sustainable. Thank you very much, honorable guests and speakers. So looking forward to the discussion later on.
Thank you so much, Aryan. We are just running 5 minutes late, and I apologize to Florenza for this. I'm happy that we have Mrs. Florenza Hadji, Director for Development Programs and Program Manager for Regional Economic Area at the Prime Minister Office. And I invite Florenza to share her perspective also from a regional level regarding digitalization, digital skills, but also the connectivity agenda for Albania and also for the Western Balkan. Thank you, Florenza, for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you, Bleriana, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very keen to be part of this discussion. It's very, very interesting so far. Even I'll try to be brief. I had a lot of points that I wanted to mention, mostly on what we as a government and my unit as the unit for programs is actually doing in relation to digital skills and innovation mostly, and about the regional agenda on what we as 6 governments are trying to do together and bring this agenda forward. We may say that we have already started our walk towards the 4th industrial revolution, where digitalization is the main theme. So now with the pandemic, even more, we're no longer just walking, but we're racing and we're running towards that. And I think that we could all agree by now that innovation and digitalization are inevitably linked, and both are considered as very important for the future of the youth, education and work. I would like to present to you today just what the government has been doing in 2 perspectives, let's say at national level and at the regional level. Of course, they're interlinked with each other, because what we're doing at regional level, it is translated into measures at national level, but I tried just to divide them a little bit. So at national level, the government has already embarked on a journey to enable the pro-innovation environment, especially with the focus in the youth, which of course is directly linked to boosting their digital skills by providing more opportunities for upskilling and also to young people, but also reskilling not only the students and the young people and the people that have just finished their school and the university, but also reskilling for the adults, the workers that are already working in industries that are changing. So what kind of reskilling they need? What kind of capacity building they need. Also business orientation, what is the new business orientation? Also increasing the innovation potential in this way of the country by ensuring a very well coordinated approach between all actors. And this is very important. I mean, it's not only the government that can do it, it cannot do it alone. There are the universities, as it was mentioned here today. There are the business sectors, which is very important. Their role is very important. And there are NGOs that are very active. So everybody together, we need to work in order to achieve this. We have started to develop, let's say, we call them soft measures, which are mainly the legal or regulatory part, administrative procedure, etc., policy framework for a vibrant innovation and startup ecosystem. We are trying to put focus on this because we believe that startups are really linked with the young population, and startups can bring innovation, because young people that have good ideas and innovative ideas need to be somehow boosted to put these ideas into action, and why not to see these ideas becoming SMEs, successful SMEs in the future, and also unicorns if we have the luck. So we have already started to preparing the new startup law that you might already have heard of it. It is now for the moment it is going under the public consultation process. This law aims at making the life easier, let's say, to startups, and giving them incentives to young people to start and manage a business and incorporate innovative practices in it. Despite of the law, we are also working to the bigger umbrella, let's say to the framework, because the law is just an instrument, but you need a framework in order to implement the law and other instruments as the law and other bylaws. So we are drafting a startup and innovation program, which my unit is responsible of coordinating the work, let's say, since it is the unit for development programs. Innovation for the moment in Albania is an area, let's say, that doesn't have, let's say, parents in terms of line ministry that that focuses only on innovation, and this is the reason why we saw it as very important to start this program and coordinate all the actors in different line ministries to put their inputs together into a program. We didn't start it a strategy because we think that the program, and when I say program, it's in the terms of operational program with really activities and actions that are on the ground that can start like from tomorrow when the program is approved, is very much needed at this time, because as it should work in terms of the, let's say the department where I'm working, is that you first have a strategy, a big strategy and the priorities, and then you translate them into programs that are very operational, and then from the programs you derive with a set of projects, real projects that you can start implementing. So for innovation, we started with a program first, because we think that it's an area that is changing a lot, and we need to put everybody together now and start this program and derive a set of projects that we need to start tomorrow. So in this context, our goal as government, and mine as director of the development programs unit, is to enhance the economic growth by accelerating the key success factors that make great startup and innovation ecosystems. Which will also generate quality jobs, like not only jobs for the young, but quality jobs that will allow them to stay in their own country, because they are investing in their ideas, and we are also helping them to make their ideas a reality. So this requires a highly structured approach, as I mentioned also before, between all the actors. Also of the development partners, which are helping, I mean, donor community. Something else that we have been working on regarding when we talk about digitalization is also e-commerce. We were already working on that area a little bit before the pandemic, but when the pandemic hit us, we thought that, and people started buying things online, and we saw, even myself, I mean, I tried many times to buy things and it wasn't easy. There were many problems there, and we talked together also with the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank to see how we can put up a plan, an action plan, because the laws are there, also the legal framework almost is there, but when it comes to implementation, we are lacking behind on having an e-commerce as it should function, in also as it functions in other countries that are more developed. So we started from April, if I'm not wrong, talking about this, and now we have a Prime Minister order that set a group, an interinstitutional group with all the main actors in the field, including also the Bank of Albania, including also other partners and line ministers, of course, that are involved. And we have the first draft, let's say, of this action plan. We are working into also smaller groups within the big interinstitutional working group, and we aim to approve this action plan, let's say by the end of the year or early next year. We have also focused our attention on building the hard measures, as we call them, and this meaning the broadband connection. It was also mentioned here today that we are somehow good in terms of broadband connection. But what we are missing is broadband connection in areas which we call black areas, and mainly rural areas. If we want to have a society that is digitalized, we cannot leave behind these areas. I mean, there are people, there are young people that can work from their home, but they don't have the connection. So we prepared together with the World Bank, and it has been finalized, a fully fledged feasibility study on broadband development. And of course, this feasibility study has come with a very big receipt, let's say. The money that are required to build this infrastructure is a lot. But we can start. I mean, of course, we'll other partners will join us in order to make this happen, despite of the budget, the state budget. But it's a first step, and we really want to move forward with bringing internet everywhere in Albania. Now, if we are going to move at the regional level, the Albanian government, along with six other governments with 5 other governments in the region, Western Balkans region, has embarked from 2017 on a journey to establish a regional economic area. And we have worked a lot on that. It might seem that the public does not have a lot of information of what we have been doing so far, but I'm assuring you that it has been a great work so far, and we are moving forward with the next action plan that was just approved in Sofia in the WB6 summit. That sets a new agenda for the common market between our countries. And the new plan that was already approved stresses the importance of working together in areas no longer only on trade, let's say, and investments, which still will be areas that we'll work on, but also new areas have been added there. Innovation is one of them, industrial development is another one. And still digitalization is an area, of course, that will be there, and that we're trying to move forward with the digital agenda. So all the summits so far, the WB6 summits, have built on each other, let's say, and they have shown the commitment that our countries, the 6 countries, and the heads of the states of the 6 countries, so political commitment, is there. And we all work together and want to work together on this common agenda and these common action plans, which are fully supported, and this should be stressed, by the EU and the EU Commission, which finances and assists their implementation to a great extent. And related to youth and digital economy, the leaders of the Western Balkans have noted many times that despite there have been good economic recovery in the region, during the past years, the labor market situation remains challenging, with a slow pace of job creation and joblessness remaining high, in particular among young people and women and marginalized groups. So we have to put attention there, and with the new plan there is attention with the new measures there. And also the youth of the region, they need to be better equipped with a wide range of skills, from basic skills to entrepreneurship and soft skills, as it was also mentioned today. So as it was also said, the future skills of the young people, let's say, have to be anticipated in order to be able to train them today according to the requirements of the labor market of tomorrow. And to change the situation for the better, the countries of the WB6 region are turning to innovation and digitalization and startups as a novel way of fostering the digital skills for employability and entrepreneurship. So I can mention just a fact here that the global, if we are looking at the startups, the global startup economy continues to grow with a very high rate, generating about $2.8 trillion in value if we are seeing the years 2016 to 2018. And it is growing with a rate over 20%, which is a very high rate. So the WB6 countries, meaning also Albania, we should all have our own portion in this growing economy, in this growing industry, to say. I would also like to mention here that I'm coming from a meeting that was today in the morning with the EU Commission and all the WB6 countries and also member states on launching a Western Balkans agenda on innovation, research, education, culture, youth, and sport. This is a new agenda. It will be approved on the 2nd of December through a ministerial that will be held on this date. And we were together today to discuss with the other countries on the measures that have been put in this agenda, on the big pillars that this agenda has inside. And it is very important to mention that innovation and digital skills are a big part of this agenda, and everybody agreed that we should focus our attention there. Regarding the smart specialization is something else that I wanted to talk very briefly. We have embarked in drafting this strategy. Just for those that don't know what the smart specialization is, this, let's say, smart specialization strategy's goal is to guide national socioeconomic transformation processes by aligning resources and strategies between private and public actors from different governance level. The smart specialization approach, it focuses on promoting sustainable economic development and growth through innovation in a cross-sectoral manner. And this is very important. It's not only the government, it's a cross-sectorial. By identifying where are the specialization areas of the country, which are defined by mapping of economic, innovation, and scientific potentials, all taking use of all the data that the country has. Followed also, not only, so it doesn't rely only on the data that you gather on this and see where are the sectors of the priority sectors of the future, but also it is followed by a comprehensive dialogue at the entrepreneurial discovery process. This is called EDP. So this includes policymakers from various government, ministries and agencies, and private sectors and stakeholders and academia and civil society. They all engage in this dialogue through this process. We as Albania are at the second phase, which is the mapping phase. So we are getting all the data, we are writing the mapping report. After this phase, the EDP phase will start. So the phase, let's say, of this dialogue will start. And we believe that this strategy is very important because it will give us an overview of where are the priority sectors of tomorrow. And this will come from this dialogue and from all the data that we have been gathered so far. So probably most of you will also be approached by us in the months to come in order to be part of this very important process, the entrepreneurial discovery process, which is called. And something last that I want to tell about the EU Code Week, which is a grassroots movement that aims to bring programming and related technology skills to people of all ages, and especially children in primary and secondary schools. And we as WB6 economists, the 6 economists together, have all committed to intensify efforts to ensure that students will, and at least 50% of the schools of the Western Balkans region have an understanding of coding and the development of crucial competencies related to the computational thinking, such as problem solving. And we have also encouraged our primary and secondary schools to get involved in the EU Code Weeks, and they have done so far in the last 2 years, in 2019 and 2020. And they'll do, and we'll try to boost them even more in the future. So, and I'd like to end my my speech, let's say, by saying that coordinating with all the WB6 countries, so that our coordination together, will be able to develop a regional innovation ecosystem that will enable us to function really as an integrated digital market in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you, Florenza, for your insights and also for sharing the good news for the new agenda that is coming up very, very soon, and also for extending the invitation for a dialogue for an important process such as that of smart specialization. Thank you to all the speakers for their input. I know we're lagging a little bit behind regarding our time schedule. Now the floor is open for comments, discussions, or questions. You can raise your hand. Virtual hand Zoom, you can write on the chat box. And I would like to start by giving the floor first to Nevila Gindi from the Mediterranean University of Tirana, who requested the floor to share her thoughts regarding digitalization and education in times of COVID. Nevila, thank you for being here today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bleriana, and thank you to everyone. It was a very interesting panel, an interesting day talking about digitalization. Just to follow up on what Aryan said and Ms. Haji said about education, I will focus on basic education of children, actually, which made us actually in a completely new situation. The pandemic forced us to take an extraordinary digital leap in the basic education of children. This required significant adjustment, not only for children, for their teachers, their families, school administration, and the entire society. Teachers and schools had to take the lead in this suddenly, unexpectedly, being all digitalized without being prepared for it. A great burden was placed also on children with their family, who suddenly had to possess all the skills that they never thought about them before. Even though children, we have all of them at home, of today, they have surrounded by digital technologies since their birth. You know, kids, they use our smartphones. They, in their everyday life and practice, they have been with the social media, smartphone, tablets, internet use. So it looks like the digital technology has been embedded in their life and they learn by themselves. But definitely not all the children had the equal position to this situation, and they were equally engaged in their digital-based education. There are issues with technology access for sure, use among adults and children involved, as well as with skills and competencies needed to integrate the digital tools into learning and teaching practices in a very meaningful ways, because we're talking about small kids. Children depend greatly on their parents, I would say, to take part on this basic education. Some children have benefited from the situation, but some have suffered. Some teachers have shown great resilience, creativity, but some others definitely have struggled. The world, we know, has dramatically changed by now, and we as Albanians have changed. Our kids have changed, our teachers have changed. We should approach digital transformation of education as one of our core concerns and consider how we could empower children to manage and master in their digital futures during their basic education. Schools are in a kind of a spot position in this. They should educate the young generation for the needs of the future. However, schools struggle to keep up the recent development in digital technology. They may be lacking resources, skills, competences, interests, and there are also maybe great indifferences between schools. We notice the differences in private and public schools, the challenge that teachers have in their public schools. In addition, I should consider that we could empower teachers, schools, and in their education to act as leaders in digital transformation. Currently, we are talking about the digital transformation at the university, and that's the reason I spot my speech today. I hope it is added to all what the panelists said, that we have to think of them, of the school, the basic school education, as one of our change that will happen in the society. Yes, for sure, students will be leaders maybe of this coming soon digital transformation. But thinking on long term, we should focus more and more on skills and digital transformation in the basic education. Thank you for today. Appreciate.
Thank you, Nabila. Thank you very much. I would like now to give the floor to Orchidea, as I mentioned earlier, to present briefly the initiative of Women in STEM and Women Empowerment through Digital Transformation. Thank you, Orchidea. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Bleriana, and thank you for today. To put it shortly, because I guess that we're quite over the predicted time. So what I'm doing with a group of friends and with SCiDEV is trying to create a network of women in STEM in Albania. STEM meaning science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Our goals are to increase awareness and participation of young girls and women in STEM, not only get a STEM education, but also once in a STEM career, striving for higher hierarchical positions, increasing the hierarchical positions of women in academia in STEM, because as the situation is right now in Albania, there is a lot of balance among leading positions being men versus women. And what is, let's say, relevant to what we're discussing today is reskilling of women to get into a tech career, which is, in my opinion, very, very important. There's a wage gap of about 10% in Albania, or 10.1%, and as it has been discussed today, with the pandemic, many women have lost their employment, and the situation of women is worse off compared to before the pandemic. It's a trend now globally that organizations and governments are getting into reskilling women, meaning that in teaching coding, so they can have a position in coding, teaching digital skills, which are very important to strive to thrive, let's say, in this new market economy, and engaging in startups that cater to the tech field. Well, I believe that it is very important to look at this in Albania as well. As Madam Ambassador mentioned in the beginning, empowering the women through tech is very important, and exactly contributing to this reskilling of women, not only through access to formal education, but talking about a target group. Let's say I'm being arbitrary in the ages, but a target group from 25 to 45, for example. It's very interesting to look into on how they can learn new coding skills, very specific one. Now, not, let's say, because in Albania, Aryan, please correct me if I'm wrong. You get to learn a wide range of codes, coding languages and skills to strive in the market, but being very specific. And it's trend in the Western Balkans 6 and in Albania as well, that many companies are subcontracting Albanian companies or Albanian sectors to conduct, to work basically for them. Labor is cheap, skills are good, so they're pretty much interested in this field. Well, I think that there's a market for that, but more needs to be done on the, let's say, NGO level, but also on the government level. And here we go to one of the last things that I want to mention is the policy side. Miss Messi and Florenza as well mentioned that policy is trying to catch up with these developments, but most of the focus is being put on use of technology without thinking of the final beneficiary of that. And I think that there is a huge need to put an emphasis on women being these beneficiaries of development of new technologies and innovations. It seems that we're with all these new developments, we always try to mainstream gender into these developments. It's not a trend per se, but it's a real need. And last but not least, we always talk about breaking glass ceilings, sending elevators back down once women are in top positions, but there needs to be more of a policy commitment towards this. And thank you all. I'll be definitely getting in touch with some of you. So looking forward to new and interesting things. Thank you.
Thank you, Orchidea. I don't know if one of the speakers or all would like to add something before we close. I see Aryan raised his hands. Yes, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, indeed, quite interesting everything you said here. Well, I wanted just to search out, as mentioned before also by Nevila, that the need for basic education for digital transformation. And there, we need just to have in place some control, audits, monitoring process. Okay, how this content is provided, how the process of learning is done, and how effective it is. So therefore, we need to build a maturity model. So to know ranking each of from elementary to high school to universities, how they are doing based on some certain criteria. And where there we find a need to intervene and provide some help from government part or even from private. There was quite interesting initiative taken from Mayor of Tirana regarding the kindergartens in order to how to adopt kindergarten. That was, let's say, pretty much the name of initiative. So any of private business or even private person needed to adopt a certain kindergarten, they could invest on this kindergarten in order to renew it or to build it or to maintain it. I guess the same call, but this case, this is even much more urgent need to adopt a school in order for, I'm pretty sure that any kind of business persons with their skills or their time effort will not cost anything to them. They are free tools, resources. They just need to build the methodology and provide them and to teach their teachers how to use it. And then one very important part of this learning process, digital transformation in basic education, if I say, it is indeed also the education of the parents. Since the parents will be much more need in order to help their own kids, because they are still kids actually, in order how to adopt this learning process. So maturity model for all the schools, an initiative adopting the school in order to digital transform them, just basically skills needed. And the last point I wanted to mention out was mentioned before, evaluating demand in Albania, trying to map the needs and everything. Actually, I can say that this is just the upper part of the iceberg, because as I mentioned before, the digital economy right now, it's not only about Albania, but it's a united digital economy. So of course, it's very important to know what are the needs for SMEs of government in Albania, but of course, most of the job and skills, digital skills we may acquire as a country, as a nation, we have to provide it around the world to outsource it. And this will bring actually quite a growth economy in our country and will be quite the niche market, as I mentioned before. Thank you very much to all your distinguished speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Aryan. I see there is a comment in the chat or a question from Erida Soray from Erasmus Plus office. Erida, the floor is yours. Can you address the question to Ms. Messi directly, please? Erida apparently has a problem with the microphone. I don't know if Ms. Messi managed to read the comment or the question. Erida is trying to create a channel of communication, I guess, between her office and the work that the universities are doing on the area of digitalization and digital skills and education, with linking it with the work that Ms. Messi mentioned about the subcommittee on sustainable development goals. I am sure that Ms. Messi would be open for such a line of communication, but the floor is yours, Ms. Messi.
Thank you, dear. Yes, I was just reading meanwhile you were even explaining. Thank you, Erida. In fact, I heard a lot of existing programs and projects which I already had the knowledge and the information. A lot of new projects from the PM office, and definitely what even Erasmus office in Albania, and what Mr. Soray is doing in the, let's say, with a new program. There are really new things that we need to promote a little bit more. So it's like we are always so skeptical and always want to do much. Indeed, we have been doing a lot of things. And what we can do is definitely to promote them and to see. When we're talking about the digital area, yeah, we cannot reach everything in one day or overnight. Simply we need to follow the trends and to expand them as much as we can. Not everything is happening in Tirana as well, so we need to work even locally from north to south and from east to west in order to, yeah, as Professor Jepal and me already mentioned, as economists, we need an economic growth, but this economic growth needs to be sustainable first, and we need to have an inclusive economic growth. If we are not having this, we can do enormous things, we can do nice strategies, programs and stuff like this, but then they will be localized only, let's say, only in one sector of the economy or one sector of industry, or one, let's say, area, local, yeah, very much, let's say, centralized. And definitely with Erasmus Plus, I have been working even before with the Ministry of the Education, even as a Deputy Prime Minister. They had a nice agency with some nice procedures with, let's say, they can do a huge impact. It's called the Agency of Innovation. Within the Ministry of Education, the core, let's say, objective of this agency is working with research. I don't know if the other, let's say, universities or European University of Tirana has, let's say, in connection with this agency, but I would like much more, and I already mentioned even to Ms. Kushi, colleague of mine, to really boost this kind of agency, not simply with research in university, but even with innovation and working much more and deeply with Erasmus. I know it is a difficult situation now working with Erasmus because of the COVID, let's say, situation with the professors and with the students. But hopefully now with a new vaccine, I do believe, or I want to be optimistic. Please allow me this, that next, I don't know, spring will be much more, let's say, free to meet with each other, and all this idea so that we are having here and discussing to put really into practice. And yes, Erida, I'm so pleased to hear and to join and to really not simply get together. I would like that I already write down some of what, let's say, was discussed here. And from SCiDEV, I would like that they would follow. So this shouldn't be the first, let's say, discussion, but whatever was discussed here to really push through the agenda, your personal, let's say, agenda, the organization that you have funded agenda, but this means that working with all together to fulfill all the, let's say, a national agenda. We have UNDP here, we have academia here, we have professors here, so I do believe that working even together, even with the, we have government. So yes, let's not simply talk, but put some actions to ourselves first, what we can do, each of us, in order to really, yeah, give the skills and offer the skills for free and everywhere to our children first, but even to our parents, because now with this situation, I do believe that for them was much more difficult to communicate even with us as children, because due to COVID and to pandemic situation, but even with the doctors, when they are having, let's say, their online consultancy because of their existing health issues, and if they had even COVID, was very much and pretty much difficult for them to really get to know with the new technology, let's say, or even calling on WhatsApp and then trying to remember what the doctor was saying. And with the new, let's say, digitalization and telemedicine, I do believe that, yeah, we need to talk and then to spread with all the generations, so not only with the students. But yes, let's start with the new generations, and then they can help us as how are we, X or Y, my millennium generation, Aryan? I'm not sure now.
Thank you, Mrs. Messi. Thank you also, Erida, for your intervention. I don't know if Professor Selami or Aryan would like to add something before we close the event. You are good? Okay.
Well, maybe just a last comment. Actually, when I participate in conferences like this, I get always very excited, because I hear so many good news and so many good things going on, both in terms of contribution by government agencies or by Erasmus Plus. With both the government agency, we're definitely working and cooperating. But in a market economy, we have a very big problem, and that is the problem of coordination. So most of the failures in a market economy happen because there is a coordination failure. And I think on that regard, given that we are talking of technology, all these players and all these actors, we have to build a platform of communicating, with each other in order to create the synergies and have better results. What counts at the end of the day, it's not the inputs, it's the outputs. And as economists, we look on the outputs, and unfortunately, we are disappointed by the results that our economy has generated so far. It is definitely a new revolution, but in fact, you know, the automation and intensive use of new technologies starts from the beginning of the 90s at least. So from this time span, 30 years, we see that the data for Albania are still disappointing. So what we have to do is that this kind of concerted work and coordinated work to make it useful for on the part of the private sector. I think that we have to look better. I don't know, maybe we are not having the right statistics, maybe we are not having the right policies in place, but I think that we have to do a real auditing, not only in terms of knowledge, but in terms of everything that's going on this new trends. And by this, I want to conclude and to thank you very much for having me with you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for being here. I didn't understand if Aryan wanted to say something.
No, I want to add to that actually, that I do agree with Mr. Seppa that you know, it does require a long time to build a startup ecosystem that's successful, you know, and we shouldn't forget, you know, that that they started in Silicon Valley in the 1960s, you know, and obviously they're bearing the fruits from it now, and so we also have to be realistic in our expectations. But I do think we can accelerate some of the initiatives, and I do also want to emphasize that the coordination between activities and programs is incredibly important. And it would be great, you know, I really want to thank you also, SCiDEV, for providing the platform for us to share our ideas and connect with each other, because I think that's definitely the starting point on which we can accelerate our output and our effectiveness. And so thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to be part of this today.
Thank you so much, Aryan. And before we conclude, I'd like to give the floor to Aida Lahi. Again, thank you so much for your motivation and support for SCiDEV and Aryan and myself to organize this event. Aida, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Bleriana. Just thank you to everybody, to all of you, to Aryan for the Dutch touch and Dutch flavor, to all the distinguished speakers. Unfortunately, I had to leave earlier, but she gave all the compliments and said to me to highlight for the level of indeed of discussion and for already making sure that this goes on. We as an embassy are looking forward to following up with some ideas that came up during this event, and wish you all a very successful and hope to meet you in some follow-up ideas in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives and your insights. It has been very insightful, and I think on behalf of SCiDEV, we will definitely be in touch for potential follow-up activities and initiatives. We definitely would like to explore further some of the areas that we discussed today, such as capacity building for digital skills through formal and informal education for various groups in society, reskilling of workers, reskilling and tech reskilling of women, and women empowerment through digital transformation, digital skills for employees of SMEs in Albania, also stronger cooperation between different stakeholders and sectors, such as the policy sector, civil society, research, academia, why not media, and the private sector as well. Development of a potential digital skill index for Albania, or including Albania into the data collection and data presentation regarding the digital economy and society index that other countries develop. And of course, another topic, an issue that was emphasized here today is that of digital inclusiveness and sustainability, to put this within the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals as well, and sustainable social and economic development. So again, thank you so much to the speakers and to all of you for joining us today. We will be in touch, and we hope that we will have some concrete further steps to work together on these priority areas for Albania. Wishing you all the best for the upcoming season of some how to say, the season of holidays. Actually, we have the Independence Day, and then we have Christmas and New Year, and hopefully everything goes well with the pandemic as well. Stay healthy and be safe, and thank you so much again. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, guys.